Oh, yeah. That's what I want. That's what I want. Yes. All right. So we're going to dive right into our message today. We're in a series called Smart Homes because we want you making smart choices. Even just what Jill shared and what others were feeling. We don't want our technology to be our all-sufficient guide, right? We want the Lord to be that. So Proverbs 9 says, instruct the wise and they'll be wiser still. Teach the righteous and they will add to their learning. So what we want to do is, as technology just rises up and so much has changed and so many things are coming our way, that we want to make sure that our homes are smart, not just with the technology that are in them, but with the people that are in them, right? We need to be smart in our own ways. And some people might be asking, hey, the church uses technology. You know, we have all these screens. We've got tech we're using. We're in homes. We're doing all these things. You know, why are we having a service about the warnings of it? And the reality is technology can be great. It can be helpful. In fact, if you don't use it, you can kind of fall behind what others are doing. And our goal in this series is not to make you Amish, you know, and just kind of put away all of it. And the truth is, you know, a lot of us have grown up with it, but sometimes in growing up with it, we might not be aware of all that comes with it. So I want to talk to you about that this morning. But first, let me give you just a little tutorial of where we've been with technology, even just as it relates to our phones. We shared with you during the Christmas season that Silent Night was the first song played over the radio waves ever in 1906. That was 114 years ago. Well, that might seem like a long time, but when you consider all of history, and then 114 years ago was the first time that happened, then think of what's happened since then. 14 years later was the first radio broadcast in 1920. 9 years later, sound and video were put together with the first movie that came out in 1929. Let's talk about photography for a second. Photography started in the 1800s with flash powder, which basically meant something needed to blow up in order for you to get the picture. The guy taking the picture would come out like just black face because all the powder had went on him, and he'd open his eyes and there would just be his eyeballs staring at you. And so that was there. And then flash lamps came in 1927, up until 1927. And then they came up in that era with flash bulbs. They were great, except for sometimes they would explode. And you could only use them once. So some of you might remember old movies where they're taking a picture and then there's just bulbs everywhere where the press was. But the average person couldn't even afford to take a picture. First computer was 1945. In fact, the reason that it came into being was to study the feasibility of thermonuclear weapons. That's a nice thing. Anyway. It sold for the equivalent of $7 million. It weighed more than 30 tons, and it took up 1,800 square feet of space. You'd have to move out of your house to get it, basically is what it had. No internal memory or only external memory. In fact, eventually the next round of it, they added a 100-word magnetic core memory, 100-word memory. And it could do 5,000 computations a second. So I want you to just take out your phone. Some of you are already looking at it in Facebook and other things. The Lord sees you, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, if you're using it for notes, that's fine. But your phone, look at this. This would seem impossible for anyone just 60 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, for sure 100 years ago. Right now, you could shoot an entire movie on your phone. People have done that with their iPhones, an entire movie. You can call someone and talk to someone anywhere and see them anywhere in the world. It's really incredible when you think of where we've been. Some of you have like over 10,000 pictures you've taken with your phone. You have them on the cloud. Some of you have them on your phone, thousands for sure. It is free for you to do this, or minimal cost at all for you to do that. And some of you, again, thousands of pictures, but your great-grandparents, or maybe your great-great-grandparents, some of them didn't own one picture. If they had one or two, it was hung prominently in the house or very carefully taken care of, and now we don't even think about it. Thousands and thousands of pictures. Think about this on your phone. The Apollo 11 rocket that sent people to the moon had a computer on it that had 72 kilobytes of storage memory. The newest phone has 512 gigabytes of memory. Here's the deal. The phone you and I hold in our hands has up to 7 million times more storage than the computer that got the Apollo 11 to the moon. The processor on your phone is 100,000 times the processing power of that same computer. So a lot's changed. That's what I'm telling you. A lot has changed. And yet, basically, we're the same people, and yet we have so much that's coming at us and so much overwhelming us. It's incredible. Barna did a study on 3 generations of people, and they asked boomers, Xers, and millennials, how concerned are you about technology as it relates to the next generation? By far, the group that was most concerned about where technology is for the next generation was the millennials. That was interesting, because millennials that I've talked to understand, I've gone on vacation, and this is what they've told me. I've gone on vacation and actually missed a vacation because I was on my phone the whole time. I've gone out to eat with friends and missed relationships because we were all on our phone the whole time. I know what it is to be addicted. I know what it is to think about nothing else than being attached to this thing. And then on top of that, the extreme anxiety that can come from social media and not measuring up. And so millennials, I think, understand, if that's how it is for me, what's it going to be like for the next generation? So technology is a great tool, but it is a terrible master. It's a great tool, but a terrible master, and that's what we want to talk about today. How do we make sure that in your life and mine, this is a tool of something that we've mastered, but not something that is mastering us? So I want you to hear me clearly. Again, we're not against technology. If you need it for work or Zoom with your family, all those things, we understand that. We're using it today. But here's the deal. If the focus of a Sunday morning is more on our technology than God, then we're in trouble, right? Same is true in your life. If the technology in your life becomes more of a focus than the relationships of your life and God in your life, then we have a problem that we need to talk about. And what we're seeing more and more is this could be a big problem in our society as well as in the church. So I want to show you a video that talks, this movie that we encourage you all to see, The Social Dilemma. I encourage you all to see it. In fact, it even ties into some of the things that happened this week in our country. See, many technologies were not designed for us to find a purpose with. They're designed for their purposes and to suck us in, including some of the most benign things that you would think of. And maybe they were starting out just to be good ideas, but now because of money and other things, the idea is actually to get you to look at them as much as you can so that you could become addicted so that they make more money. In fact, let's just roll this. We'll roll a portion of this video for you to see. So one thing, again, these are all former executives of these companies, they said is if you're getting something for free, that thing is not the product. You're the product. It's an interesting thing to think about. These things are designed to become the focal point of our lives. And because of its design, then it often produces addiction. And when it's a tool, what it's going to do is it's going to enhance our lives. And we use it to do what matters most, and we use it to organize our day and to get along with people. But when it's a master, it begins to rule over you and begins to take over and begins to hurt the relationships and purposes and designs of your life, and it becomes what matters most. Paul warned us about this in Scripture when he talks about good things becoming terrible masters in our lives. 1 Corinthians 6 says, you say, I'm allowed to do anything. All things are permissible, but not everything is good for you. Not everything is beneficial. And even though I'm allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. I must not let something else in my life be a master other than God. There's no command in Scripture against social media or video games or streaming services, but just because they're allowed doesn't mean there's not some danger to it. And the trick is this: we think, well, it's just benign. It's just, what would, scrolling through cat pictures or dogs chasing their tails or dreaming while they're running, or the epic fails. How many of you love those? Or, the game that doesn't, it doesn't mean anything. It's not that big a deal. We think it's benign, but because it's benign, sometimes we don't realize that the enemy of what's best isn't maybe something that's bad. It's just something that's there all the time. And it's dangerous to be so absorbed in the technologies of our life that sometimes we aren't listening to the people that God has placed right next to us, maybe even in the same bed as us with a spouse, maybe down the hall with kids. And so a couple questions. Are you so saturated with social media or streamings or games that sometimes you begin to say, I would rather do that than devotions or go to church or go out with my friends or do something else? And we become, or have a conversation, or we become, let me ask you another question. Can you go without it? Can you go a week without it? How would you feel? Does that make you feel like, oh man, I need deodorant under my leg pits because I don't know if I could do that. It seems too much. The updates, the feeds, all these things, would it be okay if I turn notifications off? How would we do with, and some of us like, no problem. Others are like, big problem, stop talking about this. I don't want to hear it. So our temptations in our culture now, they have arrived very quickly on the doorstep of our world. But the processes of having something come between God's purpose and God's plan and other things, that's not a new thing. In fact, Paul said this, the temptations in your life are no different than others experience. We are all kind of in the same boat here with technology, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you're tempted, He'll show you a way out so that you can do it. There's a way out of kind of maybe some of the things that maybe some of us are involved in. And then it says, flee from the worship of idols. Maybe some of you, when you read that, you're like, well, I don't have a Buddha in my house. I'm good. So whatever was just said before that, I don't have an idol in my house. I don't have a shrine. I'm not worshiping anything. And it's easy to read that and feel like I'm being left off the hook. But here's the truth. The truth is this. Idols are not just carved things. They can be anything that takes your time and your affection and begins to replace the things that really matter in your life with something else. So we worship them. We begin to value them. We place more importance on them. Maybe even right now, while I've been talking, I've been there. I'm speaking to myself. I've been sitting in services and be like, I wonder how my post was doing from yesterday. And you pull up you have 1 hour in a week to spend with God, and you spend 10 minutes of it on a post looking at something else. It might be a sign, hey, there's some issues that I got to deal with, and I've been there. I'm checking the score of a game, or I understand, and so we do that, and it's not a hostile takeover with technology. It's just kind of this imperceivable growth, and all of a sudden, it's become all a part of all of our lives. Now, in this story, we're going to show you. This is one of the executives of Pinterest who designed it, and he begins to talk about the struggle that he had, even though he knows what they put into it and how addictive they made it and what the struggle it was in his own life. We'll watch this. Brute force. So the DSM-5 is the official diagnostic catalog for counselors, using it to figure out addictions that they are seeing. The technology addiction has made the list, and kind of what he was just talking about. Here's some of the signs that you might be addicted to technology. You're hiding your usage of it, like going in the pantry. Maybe my spouse won't see. Lying about how much you use it, or manipulating yourself to get more time on your screens. If that rings true, then you're in the right place today. So 2 signs that tech is your master. By the way, we have some counselors, that part of our staff, some of others outside of our staff that I've been talking to, and one of them outside of our staff said they brought, maybe you have an addiction to tech up to someone, and they just went off on them. So here's number 1. Your master has convinced you that you cannot be happy without it. In other words, there's anger and there's other things that come up, but someone would even suggest the idea of that happening. Some of us, if you took this device and I went into your house and I just hid it, I just took it and I hid it from you, we would see a side of you that maybe we did not want others to see, right? Or maybe someone did it, and you'd be like, oh, that this beast would come out of you, and here I know because that kind of stuff has happened to me as well. We've been trained to respond, and that picture of when I get the next hit, I get the next jackpot, I get the next thing, and so there might be some signs that tech is your master. If you say, I can't go without this. I can't go to bed without this. I can't miss a day without playing that game. If you feel like something is missing, I've heard people say, it's like an appendage for me. It's like if I lost it, it's like my arm would be cut off. Those are some things that maybe we just need to be careful of. And by the way, just here's an example of how they would do this to make you come back. Just streaks, right? I got to keep playing to keep my streak, so now I'm keeping the coming back. And what's that mean? They get money from you, not from you, but from an advertiser. The streaks, I have a game that I play, and when I get to 7 days in a row, man, it gives me a nice hit of prizes. And I told you one night at 11 o'clock, Joe was in South Dakota this summer, and it gave me 2 free hours on a Saturday night at 11:30. And once you know, I didn't want to be a bad steward of that, right? So I played, till 1:30 in the morning and then got up and preached the next morning. I'm like, this is an issue. I think this is a problem here. And so this week, I'm like, I'm going to preach on this, so I better live it. So I made sure I got to day 7 first and got all my prizes. But what's been interesting is this, and I wish that wasn't true, but it is true. Anyway, so now what happened is that when I broke the streak and didn't start over, I didn't even think about it for 3 days. That was so weird. So now I haven't played for 4 days, and it wants me to play right now, but I'm not gonna do it. So, sometimes, and I've met people like that, and I'm not exaggerating. They have told me, I really don't know how to interact with people. I can't get a job. I'm choosing not to go to school because I'm on video games all night long, literally till 4 in the morning. I've had conversations, and I know some of our team has as well with people. So sometimes when addictions like this come in, we get this kind of warped feeling and this warped thing of like, this is more important than my kids. This is more important than a romantic relationship. This is more important than going out. This is more important than being a part of a Bible study or a devotional. Or this is more important than serving the Lord. Those are real things that we don't say them out loud, but they're real things going on in our minds. Here's what's happening. We're filling something up inside of us that we think is going to make us happy, but actually is leading to more emptiness. And if tech is your master, you need to know that your master does not have your best interest in mind. So second thing would be this. You become destructive when your master is threatened. So do you punish people when you get interrupted when you're on the phone? So don't look down the aisle, anybody here. But parents, when you're on the phone and your kids need something, do you lash out? Do you resent that for a moment? You're like, man, they need to eat. What's up with that? I got to finish this level. And you get that. We act like teenagers sometimes. But teens, how about you? It's time to eat. Oh, just started this. Or it's time to hang out with the family. Are you mean? Are you angry? What's happening? Some of you, again, maybe arguing with me in your mind, this is no big deal, but you just want me to stop talking. Well, maybe it just is a little bit bigger deal. So others, you might be asking, why are we talking about this on a Sunday? One of our mottos here at the church is it's where real faith meets real life. And for some of us, our real life really isn't happening a lot in the real world, so we want a real faith to pull us out of that and help us get down that road. So a recent report by MarketWatch and some other outlets have said that Americans are spending more than 11 hours a day watching, reading, or interacting with media. That's up more than 2 hours from just 4 years ago. And this was taken right before the pandemic. I wonder if it's even more than that. 3.5 hours of that is on their phones. Now, for some of us, that would be because of work, right? Just to be honest, especially now during the pandemic, if you're a teacher or something. But 3.5 hours on our phone. So, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we're walking through life like this. Now we're walking through life like this. And maybe could we be missing out on some of the purposes and design and things that God might have for us? And this has become our master. We're not saying don't use it. We're saying use it in a way that benefits you, not in a way that causes you to look at this more than you look at people or the Lord or other things. So at the end of Social Dilemma, they asked them, all these former executives, what's the number one thing you could do to control usage better in your life? And what do you do? Here's what they said. Either it was one of two things or both. We have no social media, and these are the guys that created it. We have no social media. We feel it's that dangerous. Or 2, we turn all notifications off of everything except for maybe texts and phone calls. And that made me feel good because I had done that already. So I'm like, oh, sweet, I'm great. But anyway, not really, because it's a problem. So that's what we had to do. I had to do in my own life. Only text and only voice, only calls are notified. No other thing gets a notification for me because I don't want to be in a conversation with you and then find out a score and be like, oh, and then it takes me away from other things, or because I know what would happen to me. I'd be like, hey, here I go. And you've been there, I've been there. You're studying for something, you're like, well, I'm going to check a score. I'm going to check how my feed's doing. I'm going to check this. And then you're like, the next thing under that's a video about epic fails. You're like, I love seeing people get hurt but survive. You know what I'm talking about? The funniest home videos, those things. And then after a while, like an hour's gone, and it didn't work like I should. Some of us, maybe our performance reviews are more tied to some of this than maybe we want to admit, or we missed out on moments because I'd rather be checking something out. I have a friend who took the brute force way. For him, it was this. He said he was so addicted to video games and where it would lead him that he just packed up his console. He knew his friend wanted one, couldn't afford it, and just brought it to his house and said, take it. He said it took a minute, but there was such freedom from getting out of, I have to level up, I have to get to the next thing. So we have smart devices, right? But we need to be smart enough to handle them in a way that helps us and doesn't hurt us. The truth is, for a lot of us this morning, technology has a way more powerful hold on us than we would ever want to maybe admit. And sometimes we maybe can't see how strong it is until that technology has been taken away. And we need to be careful. I better keep moving forward here. Galatians 5 says this, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and don't let yourselves be burdened by the yoke of slavery. There are some things in our life that you don't have to have mastering you, and you can regain some control back over even some of the benign things that we're talking about. Here's the reality, though. I'll just be really honest with you. That list of all the companies that were there, maybe except for one or two, you know that there's some pathways that lead to some very dark places if you dig deep enough, right? You open those doors and you end up some places that can destroy your marriage, can destroy your future. Relationships can get a hold of you in such a way that removes you from God blessing your life. And we need to be careful in those ways as well. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 quick ways to master your technology, and then we'll close. Number 1, wake it up and put it to bed yourself. Don't take it to bed with you and don't wake up with it, in other words, right? So about 3/4 of Americans begin their day, before they do anything, they get on their phone. Check their email, check their text, check their 3/4 of Americans say they do it. One guy put it this way. He said, really, my big question when I wake up is this. Do I check my phone before I use the bathroom or while I use the bathroom? And you've been there. Don't tell me you haven't been there. I know, especially guys, you've been there. 45% of Americans say they use digital media all the way up to right before they go to bed. Now, here's the problem with that. Social media and television really don't create a restful thing, especially social media. It's a high likelihood of causing anxiety in the moment that you're supposed to be going to bed. Oh, I can't believe so-and-so said that, or especially if it's directed at you, or can you believe this just happened, or that? And by the way, here's the biggest thing probably with that. Temptation is highest when? At night, right? And if you're alone with technology at night and you're tired, guess where that leads you? It can lead you to some very explicit places that you didn't intend to go, and that's oftentimes where the enemy probably puts some things right there. So if that's not a part of your nature, you end up not being in some places you would otherwise be. It's a recipe for disaster. We'll do that more another time. For this week, it is liberating to say no to your phone. So whatever it is, maybe it's like the last 45 minutes, there's no tech. I'm going to give my mind a break. When I get up in the morning, I'm going to eat something first before I look at the phone. I'm going to maybe get a little devotions. As Pastor Todd said last week, some of us, I don't have time to pray, but I have time for 3.5 hours on my phone. So maybe it's spend 10, 15 minutes with the Lord so He's your sufficient one, not other things that you're feeding into your soul first. It's time to make tech a tool again, where you're the master saying, I need this for my calendar. I need this to see what's happening in the world right now for a season, not for the entire day, and not then to keep us from other relationships of our life. Second is monitor technology usage. Pastor Todd mentioned this last week. There's settings on your phone where you can know how much time did I spend doing what this week and analyze, was that for work? Was that with family? Was that a helpful thing? Was it not? And then you might be shocked. You could also do this with your kids and set it up for them to know how much they're doing as well. Third is establish house rules. These will be different for everyone. Let me just give you a few that we have or that are suggestions. No tech after a certain hour at night. No social media before going to bed. No tech until after breakfast. Maybe set how many gaming hours are we going to have as a family, or have in our no social media accounts until high school. The stats are very clear It is, middle school minds are not meant to deal with all the things that happen with the comparison model, and probably not even ours. We need to be careful with that. But having some things in place just to be careful there. No tech at dinner. That's one of our rules at our house. No tech at dinner. No tech till after homework's done. Maybe something like that. So whatever works for you, but taking the time to say, this is my schedule, and I'm going to own it, and I'm going to master it. I'm not going to be mastered by somebody else who wants to make money from me because I'm looking at my 1400th cat video of the day, or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? And if you're a dog person, you got your own issues you're looking at as well. You know what I'm talking about. So before we close, I just want you to, we're going to lay this before the Lord. And I'm just going to ask you to bow your heads and close your eyes. Some of us are like, this was nothing. I'm glad I came today. I didn't feel any conviction. We'll get you another week, I'm sure. Others of you are like, this was not good for me, or it's awareness for me. And with you, if that's you today, there might even be a lot of fear that's built up inside of you. Because you just are realizing, boy, maybe I'm over the line, or maybe I'm way over the line, or I'm in some dangerous waters. And I don't want that to be. I want to have the Lord be my master of my schedule and my time. And maybe in your life today, you haven't even recognized or even asked God into this area of your life, and it's just slowly taken over. And would you just maybe right where you're at, just say, God, I want you to be master of all things. Kind of this language of today, what Scripture's revealing to me is, I might have a little problem. I've been real judgmental of people addicted to stuff, and here the truth is, it's a little out of control with me. Lord, give us wisdom in how to have these conversations with one another, whether it's a friend or family. And help us, Lord, to make sure we're putting you first above all things. We don't want any idol in our life. Even something that on the surface is benign, but we don't want that to take away from the purpose and direction and vision that you've given for our life. So God, we just ask for your forgiveness. We ask for your plan and your way. And Lord, we know in all these things that we're your child, and we don't have to walk in fear. We don't have to walk in any of those things. But the truth is, if there are things that are coming between me and you, that thing can be sin, even though it might not be ugly and a monster and all these other things that we think of sin. But it's anything that separates us from you and gets our attention and affection more than you. So God, we humbly come to you and we just ask your forgiveness. And whether there's fear or frustration or what other things, it would be replaced because we're your children. And God, would you give us the strength to move forward, I pray. So Nathan, would you just lead us in this psalm for just a few moments as we just worship God and lay this before him. So you just lay it before him however you would while Nathan sings. And if you want to sing, just join us as well. Thank you, Lord.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance.
Deliver us, Lord.
From my enemies,
Lord, even this.
till all my fears are gone. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. For I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. For I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. And I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. And I'm no longer a slave to fear.
Let's declare this.
For I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. For I am a child of God.
what a beautiful thing to be children of God. And maybe for you, you joined Jason in praying that, or you have questions about what exactly does it mean to be a follower of Jesus and to receive that gift of him being the one who will save me and keep me and forgive me and empower me to live out this life. If you have questions or if you're new to the faith, we would love to get some resources to you, to connect with you. You are not alone. We are all in this, and we want to be in it with you. Those of you online, those of you here, we're going to invite you to do a very 2021 thing and text BELIEVE to the number 97,000. And for those of you who are new and you just want to know, how do I connect more at Evangel and make friends and get plugged into learning the word more deeply, please text New EC to the number 97,000. Or if you're here on campus, we would love to see you at Connection Corner out that center door. We will dismiss in just a couple of minutes. It's been such an honor to have part of this day with you all. Those in the room, those joining in the rooms across the screens. And God needs to be the master of our lives. And there's no one better and no one more loving. And he will empower us as he guides us and directs us. And what a great, great message today. And last week, Pastor Todd gave us some homework, so just checking in real quick. If you guys checked on your screen time, maybe you want to do that weekly. Maybe, over lunch today, you can just get on really quick and see how much time you spent and what you were on. It was very interesting. Our family did that, and what it counts as screen time was really shocking. Like, all my music playing counts as screen time. But anyway, this week, we are doing kind of a saturation check-in. So on top of maybe that, just being mindful of our screen time. Now, for some of us, we're working through a screen, we're going to school through a screen, all of that. And maybe that's why this is even more important, because we're kind of getting desensitized to the saturation of screens. So perhaps for our homework this week, you could choose maybe one of these things. And for some of you, this is no big thing, so pray for those of us that it is. Allow a streak to end. Turn off 2 notifications. And here's a third one. Buy an alarm clock. They're like around $10. So that way your phone isn't beside you waking you up. And if you have the white noise or brown noise, or you go to sleep to the sounds of an ocean, maybe buy a sound machine. They're not that expensive either. But just find ways. And I know that we are committed to do that, and I pray that you will be as well. Well, for those of you who are here or joining online, we're so glad you've spent part of this day with us. If your children will be with us during second service next week, we would love for you to register them so that we are ready for them. That starts at noon today and goes through Saturday evening. And again, if you are new or if you have any questions, please do text and stay connected. I'm going to say it on social media. Okay, that 15 minutes a day maybe that you're giving yourselves. But if you're here, we would love to meet you in person at Connection Corner. So with that, you guys joining us online, thank you for being here. We love you. We are praying for you, and may God bless you. Happy 2021.